everyone, and welcome to my channel Knitted Art History, where I'm sitting telling you some art history stories while knitting. And welcome back to another video that I am actually very excited about this video and about the artist that I'll be telling you today. So today, as you saw already by the end of the video, we'll be talking about and by the thumbnail about a woman artist, and most probably that you have never ever heard of, because she is like our local Ukrainian artist. And to be fair, I'm pretty sure that a lot of Ukrainians actually also never heard about her. We were studying Ukrainian art, so we surprisingly didn't really have a really great course in Ukrainian university. So I don't know how to explain that, but I don't really, I remember we were talking very, very briefly, in this semester, that was this spring. I just bought her book with her sketches of our Ukrainian traditional ornaments, and just sketches of our traditional clothes, and made this also. She has a sketch in her book with this ornament, so decided why not. Looks beautiful, and plus with some interesting history. So there's the ornament from Ternopil region, where she's originated from. Let's straight dive into. So to grab your food, grab your drinks, whatever you want. Today I'm still here. I'm still on this chapter, months already. But yeah. Finally, I'm finishing. You can see it's a sleeve. It's a sleeve. Maybe I will finish it this weekend. But yeah. So let's go. Let's dive into our topic today. So Olena Lvivna Kulchytska. So Lvivna, in Eastern countries, here in Eastern Europe, we have this thing, and I know that some of the Middle Eastern, right? Some of Asian countries, you also have similar things. So we are using. I don't know if you know how it's called in English. So we are using our father's name to into our full name. So Lvivna, it is from the name Lev, which was the name of her father. So I won't obviously use Olena Lvivna Kulchytska all the time. It's just her full name, so you would know. So she was born in 1877, September 15th, in one of the villages, one of those little cities in Ternopil region. Obviously I'll show you the map so you'll understand. It's western regions, and this city was called Brezhany. So she was born in a very good and healthy family. Let's say it like this. Her father, he was an advocate, and nevertheless, he supported his daughter's interest, because she started from a very young age. She started to draw. Basically, the childhood and the interest is here is the same as for the most artists. Start from a very young age. They like to paint. Their parents, they supported them, and and things were like this. And overall, as I said, they had a very, very healthy household. So she was the youngest daughter out of two. She had an older sister, Olena. And I will mention Olena a lot in this video, because they were super close, and they lived till the rest of their life together. But unfortunately, Olena, did I say Olena or Olga? So the sister's name is Olga, and we are talking about Olena. Olena, she relived everyone, all of her family, and at the end of the life, she basically stayed on her own, alone, because they decided with Olga that they will stay, as I said, together till the end of their lives. They were traveling together, they were living together, they were doing together everything, doing art and stuff. Teaching together, and they stayed unmarried, they stayed childless, and as I said, so Olena Kulchytska, she relived everyone, and unfortunately was left alone, maybe in the circle of her friends or something like that, but without her family. So I have also some of the quotes that I translated from Ukrainian and English, because I'm pretty sure there's no English translation to that. So I will read you a quote about her memory of her household and stuff, so she's writing. In general, my relatives treated my work so loyally and sincerely, with such a deep interest in art, that I, remembering these beautiful waves of holidays in my native house, am all touched to the core of my soul. Her first education, as I understood, just overall like school education, she received in one of the monasteries in Lviv. I will not even tell the name because I somehow haven't found an English analog. So I mean, in Ukrainian it is called Monastyr Sakramentok, in Polish Sakramentek, but somehow, as I'm saying, I haven't found the English analog, so I don't know how it will be written in English, but it's not so important. After that, for some period of time, she visited Lviv Art and Industrial School, and it was in this place where she got her base in art, just like overall. And also there was in this place that she started like more professionally draw with watercolor. So all of this was going on in 1894, and now like we're gonna skip a few years till the beginning of 20th century, 1901, 1903. So in this period of time, she was going like at some point at the same time to to private school that was founded by Stanislav Botovsky Kachor. I'm sorry, even I myself don't know how to pronounce it right. And also she was visiting the Lviv studio of painters realists. And after that, so for these few years she was studying at Lviv, and after that she decided to go continue her studying in Vienna. So the next, she would be living in Vienna for 5 years, so from the period of 1903 1904 08. In these 5 years she studied everything, so she was able to create like in every technique, in every style, well, basically everything you can imagine. So she was operating with oil like very good. She was a very good watercolorist. She was like the part with her etching and engravings is completely another theme, so I will mention about this briefly in this video, but I will not touch it very extensively because it is a very large also theme like within her art. She was also creating so like ceramics. She was also creating some like small sculptures and stuff like that. So again, as I said, everything. She was a very, very talented young lady. At her final exam in this school that she was studying, she presented a metal box with the some kind of like whimsical swirling patterns, and she received a prize for this thing, which allowed her to to travel to other places in Europe, and especially to visit the art centers of Europe back then, which were Paris and Munich. And well, at some point we can say they were competing a bit among themselves. So, and that was in this both of the city there were like a lot of Ukrainians and a lot of Ukrainian artists back then. So it was also a very important place. And yeah, so I mean, in Paris it was maybe a little bit better for her because back then in Paris always was a little bit more liberal, or how to call it, right, more free. And women were, well, they not like really had like a lot of freedom and well, stuff like that, but at least artists, they like women artists, they were able to go to, well, private, but still they were able to go to schools, art schools. I mean, they were able to work in some museums like Louvre, for example. They never actually closed their doors like in front of women. They were allowing them to come and copy works like on site, because I mean, I think a lot of you know, understand that a lot of artists they have this practice that they're going to museums and they're working on site, copying a work, because seeing some kind of works in real life and in photo, it's like it might sometimes differ a bit, especially in terms of color. So it's way more important. Well, first of all, yeah, it is important to see the originals, and not just for artists, for us art historians also, but it is also well, again, better in terms of, well, everything, the color, perspective, composition. You are seeing it better on site than on just on photos, something like that. And back then, well, there was no such thing as good photo, right? So black and white photo was no use. So yeah, and the Louvre, they weren't like not against it. They were like, if you want to draw come, go, do whatever you want, no matter who you are, man, woman, whatever. And yeah, and she got even to England at some point. She was traveling a bit in Switzerland, in Italy also. So she was making some paintings there in France and in Italy. She was a good master in tell me, in oil. And she left actually a vast collection of her own work. So it's like what, more than 431 a piece, like oil piece, and all of this was in her will. She left to one of the Lviv art museum, which is just named after our like Metropolitan Archbishop Andrei Sheptytsky. He was, as I said, like Metropolitan Archbishop of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, and he is also like a very important figure in Ukrainian he's also a very important figure in Ukrainian culture, in Ukrainian politics, because he was well, a part of, I don't really know a lot about what he was doing within church, because we are studying him as a philanthrope, because he, like, if not his money, we wouldn't have now a lot of artists in Ukrainian art, because he was sponsoring a lot of them. He was seeing a lot of talents, and he was again paying from his own pocket for this artist to them to go to study in Italy, in France, to see the world a bit, so they would come back and continue working within Ukraine and popularizing Ukrainian art, even though it was a very, very strict period of time back then. But still, he was a, well, basically I think I can call him a godfather of a lot of artists. And yeah, and at some point, so I don't know how well known, how good they communicated with Elena Kulchytska, but well, I suppose, because I will mention a little bit later that she directly wrote a letter to him to preserve her works. So yeah, so I don't know, I didn't find any information how close they were, but it's not, I mean, it is important, but not so important. And well, getting back to all of this paintings, so she was painting in, well, different, again, all of the genres that you can imagine, starting from portrait, ending with some historical paintings and still lifes. Even though still lifes was her least favorite genre, she didn't like, we don't have a lot, she didn't paint a lot of still lifes, but still, again, she was doing everything. And she was also, as I saw, so I was watching some of the lecture on her also, that she was a very quick painter, very quick drawer. Is there's a word like this, drawer? Well, the person who's drawing. So sketcher, she would like come to some public places and she would sketch just people around, and well, I think you can imagine how fast you need to be to catch all of these moments. And then she will come back to her studio and create compositions with her sketches of real people. Especially, she really liked to show kids, even though, again, she stayed childless, so, but she has a lot of paintings with kids and a lot of paintings with Mother Mary in Christ. So such an interesting also thing. And what in this period of time, so it's like her early period or early paintings, and we can see that she was very fond of Impressionism. So some of her paintings that she's done in Europe, that she's done in Venice, for example, in Paris, in London, in not Paris, in French countryside, in English countryside, we can see some of the well, motives of Impressionism. She was a very quick worker. I think it's just, it added to the fact that she was interested in Impressionism. Other works, so she, in this period of time, so in these 5 years, she was still, every summer she was coming home, and they had a family home in Kosiv, so it's like also one of the cities in Western Ukraine, and it's like very popular city village in Ukraine, because there's a lot of things that we have there that are originated from there. One of them is the ceramics from Kosiv. So everyone, when we were studying this, and our teacher showed the examples of this ceramics, everyone started to laugh because, oh, like I have this at home and I have this at home and I have this at home, and everyone like, eventually have at least one piece, every Ukrainian at home of this ceramics from Kosiv. So yeah, so that's why all of us, we know that. And part of this, there's a pretty distinctive also ornaments going on there. And so as I said, every summer she would come to this place, and she would also create sketches. She will go around different villages, look at the life of our people, and she was made sketches of this life and how everyone, what everyone was wearing, and with basically everything. These works, they are a little bit different from the works that she created in Europe, that she were portrayed in Western Europe. And she in her works in Carpathian Mountains, she really greatly caught this very changeable weather of the mountains, because I think if you ever were in mountains or you live maybe in mountains, you know that 1 minute it is sunny, the other is foggy and stuff like this. And this is what's going on in Carpathian mountains also. It's like at certain point, at certain level, it's sunny, it's fine, it's like great. You're getting up another like 100-200 meters and it's foggy and you can see anything and it's raining. She was able to quote this changes of the weather and just overall the season and stuff. So I mean, our Carpathian mountains are amazingly beautiful. I'll read a quote from her. So she was especially fond of we have some region there, like ethnical region. It's not there now, but ethnically it was called Kulchytska, and the people who lived there were Hutsuls. So this is also a very amazing part of our culture, and they have such a colorful things. All of the ornaments are very colorful. You will never ever confuse the Hutsul ornament, Hutsul clothes and stuff with anything. So I think that's why she was so fond of especially of Hutsul art. And quote, I walked among the Hutsuls painted. I felt in myself the straight and energy that makes a person create. I completely immersed myself in the work, and when I look at my images from that time today, I just look at the scale, the courage and energy with which these pictures were painted. So you can see how inspired, right, she was. The period of time we'll be talking now is from 1908 to 1939. So in 1908, after she finished her studying in Vienna, she decided to move to a Polish city, Przemyśl, where she lived for 30 years. Przemyśl also, back then, it was a city where a lot of Ukrainians was there, and I mean still now there is a very big Ukrainian diaspora there. She moved there after she finished her studies in Vienna and her travels through Europe. And she moved there with her mom and with her sister again. In 1909 was held her first art exhibition, private art exhibition. Here she started to teach in few of the places, and a part of that she also was she was helping a lot Ukrainians. And so when the First World War started, she was in Przemyśl with her family, and she helped prisoners in this period of time. She collected money, she visited all of them, and well, Polish government didn't like that because they had this politics back then, as the same that Russians still have, that Ukrainian cultures, who, and they were very not fond of that. And they wanted to put actually her and just overall her whole family into one of the camps where all of these prisoners, other Ukrainians, were held, and there was the Tellerhov camp. But here she was lucky because it's her uncle. It was the brother of her mother, Roman Stabelsky. He was a prosecutor in Przemyśl in this period of time, and somehow so he he made something that the girls were saved, but they well, forced to move to Vienna back again, but not for a very long period of time. And still she moved there, and she didn't stop to work. I mean, in terms of art, she still was creating, she was still painting, she was doing some sketches and all of the stuff. She was creating, you know, still created a large series also of her graphic works, and etc, etc. A little bit I will mention, because it is very important, that she was very, very fond of secession. I hope it pronounced it right. So of Vienna secession. So it is the same thing as Art Nouveau basically, but you know, different country. They had their own names. Like Italy, for example, had Liberty, not with French accent, like Art Nouveau in Brussels and in France, etc., throughout the Europe. And all of them obviously had their own distinctive features also, so they were not, you know, it was technically, we were calling all of this Art Nouveau, but all of these countries, they had their own specifics. She was very, very fond of this, and obviously she knew very well the Vienna secession, like considering how many years she lived in Vienna. And we also know for a fact that she was familiar with a lot of artists that were the part of secession in Vienna, and some of them, you know, she was even maybe being inspired by them to, you know, she was like taking some kind of compositions out of them into her own works and stuff like that. And well, this secession, even though she, you know, she moved out of Vienna, but the secession never left her. And actually, you see, the western parts of Ukraine and Lviv, including, it was under the, at some point, right, it was under the Austrian Empire. So there was like a lot of influence of Vienna secession, of Austrian secession. And we have even in our art history such a thing as Lviv secession. So yeah, so it's a, you know, combination of our features of Austrian secession with well, our inside, you know, our local like ornaments, forms and stuff like that. She brought this style into trends in Ukrainian art. She was doing like the same as I said. So she was taking some features of secession, and she was just using, because at this point she already, you know, knew a lot about national clothes, about national ornaments, and like overall everything national. She started to get very, very into ethnography, and she was just, you know, mixing all of this, and we can see this combination in a lot of her works. I mean, obviously I will be showing you all of this now. Part of that, as I was mentioning in the video about Muha, about who else was that was in this period of time, just Muha, I think, right? No, maybe someone else, but I forgot about who was making videos already, but whatever. In Art Nouveau, you know, the artists, they were everyone. So starting from architecture, ending with designers. And so Kulchytska was completely the same. She was not creating any like architectural style, but she was creating her own furniture for her apartments. She was creating clothes also with her sister, so you know, she would make sketches of how she sees stuff, and she would, you know, take the traditional like national cut of the clothes, and she would then redo it into some kind of like modern way. I mean, modern to her obviously, and then she would add some kind of ornament also that was inspired by secession and our traditional ornaments. And yeah, so she was doing like this, and her sister Olga, she was helping her with that. She was creating these things, and so things like that. I will even quote also one of our critics, art critics, Holubet, said that Kulchytska is the daughter of secession. She emerged from it and paid tribute to it throughout her creative career. In Vienna, the sisters, they continued to help Ukrainians, and they joined, both of them, the work of the newly created Committee for Aid to wounded Ukrainian soldiers. And this committee this organization published a series of postcards with reproduction of artists' work on different military themes, which became the first attempt to popularize the Ukrainian idea through the means of art. As I said, in 1919, they came back to Przemysl, well, Polish government, Polish authority were again not very happy with them, with sisters, to help their fellow Ukrainians. Can you imagine Ukrainian helping Ukrainians? Scandalous. And they will put both of the sister in one of the camps for just civil people in camp in Baranov. And well, that's where they spent like some time. Eventually they were left free. I'll mention about Olga also. So the image of her sister was a very important image in her art. She drew her sister a lot, and again, a different technique, in oil, in etching, in engraving, and like whatever she could put her hands on. The love was so strong that they stayed together their whole life. As I mentioned, never get married, never had children. And out of all of this painting, all the paintings that were left to Lviv Art Museum, we can name that there's like more than 30 of them where Olena showed her sister Olga. And again, as I said, they're very different. And Olena, as an artist, she was setting herself some tasks also. So, for example, I will show you that I was watching one of the lections on her, and well, it's in Ukrainian, so there's no translation there, but this art historian that she was doing this lecture, she showed this picture, and it's actually, I really loved her explanation, really loved how she analyzed this work. So I'll show you also this work, and I mean, I will not like retell you or something like this. I will just point out the same thing that she pointed, that how amazing Kulchytska was as an artist. So I'm talking about this portrait where so we can see that Olga, she is wearing a white dress, and her background is the white wall, right? So a very, very interesting thing, a very interesting type of showing, which is pretty, I mean, it's pretty hard task, showing white on white, but I think you will agree with me and with this art historian that Kulchytska made actually a very great job. And that Olga, she's not, she's not getting lost on this white background. So Kulchytska somehow, she created this very thin and very like almost unseen aspects that at first you are not paying attention to them, but this little small accent, they're actually pulling out, right, the figure from this background, from this white wall. And well, amazing work. And because this portraits, they were drawn throughout a lot of years, so we can see in some of them the features of impressionism, in some of them the features of expressionism, and different stuff that different styles that Olena Kulchytska was fond of throughout her career. Briefly here I will mention again about the etchings, about the book illustration, about book graphics, and as I said, it's a very, very vast theme on its own, so I will not dive into that because the video will be very long already. She was very, very popular as a book graphics, book designer, and she was designing, she was illustrating books by Ukrainian artists. She was illustrating some fairy tales, some magazines, almanacs, and well, basically everything. One of her most famous works is the illustration to one of the works of our very, very famous author Ivan Franko, and it's an illustration for his book Lys Mykita. Basically, I will translate it like Mykita the fox. Mykita is the name. So I think like English analog is what is, I think, Nicholas, yeah. So basically it's like Nicholas the fox. And yeah, part of illustrations, she was very fond of creating postcards because she herself believed that it is the best way to popularize art. And in Kulchytska's engravings, the pattern is unusually economical. There is nothing superfluous, no details, and each line is on its place, and each line has its own purpose. As I said, I'm not gonna dive very deep into that because it will take like a lot of time. In this period of time, so in terms of her oil works, so it's like I'm talking about like 18, like it's like 20s, 18, like 20, 25, 28, something like this. we can see some of her works, some of the elements of expressionism. Those works, you know, they are opening a new stage in her art. So the colors of her painting started to get this, you know, very vivid, very colorful. There were not a lot of detailization in this work, so there were a lot of generalizations in this work. So stuff was like this. So it's like her new stage of her art. Now let's talk a bit about also her ethnographical work, because it is like an enormous part of her life. She traveled through all of the western Ukraine. She was going into the smallest villages that you can imagine. She was creating very, very valuable sketches, especially for now. Among the numerous works of Kulchytska, an important place is occupied by a series of drawings of folk clothes on which she worked for many years, so from 1928 till 1946. Many of these sketches were made like on place, on site. So again, she was working very hard, and not just with pencil, but also with watercolor. She was such an amazing watercolorist that she was able, you know, to create a full watercolor piece on site for, like, you know, very, very limited amount of time. This ethnographical sketches of different local villages in Ukraine are of great historical and cognitive value for us now, obviously. This interest, like, I mean, a very high interest in Ukrainian culture and in the field of ethnography, and now is considered in the context of national revival, which at the beginning of the 20th century encouraged professional artists to study folk culture. Kulchytska's work unfolded in several directions, studying the ethnographic heritage as a basis for one's creativity and the development of new aesthetic concepts. The fixation of monuments in works of art, which gave an impetus to the development of documentary drawing as a form of preservation and popularization of examples of folk culture, cooperating with magazines to spread the culture of the people. And the last one is formation of museum collections and involvement in the organization of regional museums. This interest in folk culture was not something that, you know, she had like overnight. It started already back then in Vienna, when she was studying there. Back then, she already discovered the decorative wealth of folk art, and starting from already back then, she was using all of her sketches that she was doing with all of these national ornaments into animals, into furniture, into, well, carpets, you know, everything basically. In the summers of 1805, 1808, it was in this period of time that she, well, maybe understood that she wanted to, like, research this topic, the ethnographical topic, even more deeply than she was already. Kulchytska, she considered documentary drawing to be an effective formula for preserving and spreading folk art. In this genre, she created a large series of watercolor drawing of various types of folk art. In the center of her interest were always folk clothing, ornaments, and she was also doing some sketches of churches, wooden churches, and also some of the like residential architecture. And that was also very, very important, because we have like wooden architecture is pretty distinctive also features of our Ukrainian art. And I mean, it's all of the Eastern bloc, I'm sorry, but we have in the Ukrainian wooden architecture one thing that is, well, apparently just we have that, the only one in the whole world. So it is very, very important, and it's a very, very unique thing. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but for now, unfortunately, all of these things are situated in the like eastern regions of our country. And, well, I don't need to explain to you that in the period of war, all of the culture is getting destroyed, and especially by such nations as Russians, that they just want to completely destroy us just because they want to. And well, I really hope that, I mean, a part obviously of our people to survive. Will not even mention this because this is like the common sense, but our art also, some of these things would would be preserved and will survive also this war, because from the deoccupied territories there is already things that were destroyed, and destroyed on purpose because they, I don't know, was bored maybe, right? Because they were not, I mean, from all of this from all of this like wounds, I will even call it like this, on this art pieces, like you can clearly see the restorators could clearly see that those things were made on purpose. Not like, missile got wrong or something like that. It was on purpose. So it was somewhere standing right in front of this thing and shooting at this thing. So yes, this is why all of this, ethnographical things are very important. And I think it's now, considering and seeing how very meticulous she was into showing all of this, into sketching all of this, and documenting all of this, it's such a pity that she never was in eastern regions, in south regions, because I think that she would actually also make a very amazing work there. It's important also things that she was not preserving this knowledge for herself and this love to her culture and her homeland, and the ornaments and clothes and everything. She was sharing, well, sharing is caring, right? So she was sharing everything with her students actually. So in the period of time when she was teaching in Przemysl and in Lviv also, she was always showing, she was always sharing with her students her passion to Ukrainian folk culture. And her students in Przemysl, the girls from Ukrainian family, they were studying there for to become later teachers themselves also, and they're saying that they remember how passionate Kulchytska was about the folk. These girls, the students, recall that it was sisters Elena and Olga who instilled in them a love of folk art and embroidery. A part of that also sisters, and I mean Kulchytska, especially Olena Kulchytska, she held also some of the costume contests, where you needed to recreate some of the national clothes, or like reproduce the traditional clothes of like certain region that you like, maybe where you were from, or you choose to choose one because, for example, she was taking part in one of these tests, and she recreated the traditional clothes of Kiev region, even though she was from Ternopil, and Ternopil and Kiev region are quite like apart. Thus, you see, we can say that she influenced not just art but also a fashion of like back then, in that period of time. As I was mentioning, she was using all her detailed sketches of clothes and ornaments to create her own outfit. Using traditional cut and decor, she enriched the shape and construction of the product with modern elements of design and decoration. She also, she was a very intelligent woman, as I think all of you already understand, and she understood that not just that sketches is good, is fine, it's amazing, right? It's a very important thing, but it would be very nice to have actually all of this thing that you're making sketches of to be preserved also. So she understood that it is very necessary to create museums for the complete preservation of culture. On her initiative, the Association of Supporters of Ukrainian Art was created in Przemysl, and this association created a museum, Stryvogir. It wasn't working for a very long period of time. It was working just for a decade, from 1935 to 45. But the work information of found, so this of this museum started in 1931, officially was opened in 1935, and Kulchytska, she regularly traveled through different villages in western Ukraine, and she was making sketches, and she was bringing some of very rare pieces from these regions into this museum. Very important thing is this is the book that I took this ornament from. It was the album of drawings of the national clothing of Ukrainians of the Western regions. And the book that we have now was printed now. It's like not the full collection of her I'll tell you, drawings, sketches. This book contains just like a little bit more than 100 drawings, when in reality she had more than 420 something, 26, 25, 26, 426 drawings. So you can imagine, like, right, the scales of work. All of these works are done and, you know, created in different techniques, in watercolor, in ink, in linearite, in pencil, and etc, etc. This drawings, this series presents Ukrainian clothing at the end of the 19th, the first third of the 12th century, and she was drawing these things, drawing this no, she was making the sketches of these drawings start from 1910 till 1953, and she drew basically everything: ornaments, festive clothes, everyday clothes, and paid a very special attention to wedding wreaths. Somehow was very fascinated about that. And she was, well, some of the sketches I made was such details. So, I mean, you can clearly see, you know, in the sketches, the ornaments, and you can actually recreate them. So this is amazing. In the 30s, Lena Kulchytska already was a very popular artist, a very well-known artist. And in 1933, she had a personal exhibition. Even a book was written already in this period of time about her and published in Lviv. In 1938, so she was 61 already, she was, you know, she resigned from her teaching job and she decided to go to retire to Lviv. And that was, you know, that was what she have done. I was enormously happy about it. She took everything that she owned in Poland and Przemysl, and she took it back to Lviv. And in 1939, so she moved to Lviv in 1939. She started to work at the Shevchenko Scientific Society. This is like a society that was, this is like a group that was created in 1873, and this is basically a Ukrainian scientific society devoted to promotions of scholarly researches and publications. And in 1940s, something like that, it was closed, obviously, because Ukrainian culture. How dare the things they strays. But then in 60s it was revived again, and it still exists, and it has a lot of it's like branches, filias in different countries where as I understand where the biggest Ukrainian diasporas are. Since 1938, she worked at the Lviv Museum of Ethnography, and this as well actually was, you know, her place, because she throughout all of this year that she was studying ethnography, she got so skilled till the point that you see, she would she knew the ornament of each region or even village so perfectly that she could unmistakably recognize from the costume where its owner came from. Here also she continued with her travels, and she was traveling in different villages, different cities in Western regions, and she was bringing back to this Lviv museum also some examples she was doing with this museum in Poland they had for a few years. But in 1939, so that was the year that when Lviv was occupied by Soviet Union, by Soviets. And back then, so Kulchytska, she lived, I think there was actually at this point her mother and her sister, they already died, so she's all alone. And she was living in a four-room apartment. And you see, apparently the Soviet Union, the Soviet government decided that it is like a too big apartment for one woman, and they wanted to, so there was this practice that if you had like a very big apartment, they would just move in some random people to you, because like, why the hell you need so much space? You can have a lot of arguments about communism, about socialism, but we people who really suffered, you know, my mother was born in this still, even though she was a child when the Soviet Union split up, but still she remembers it very clearly. My grandma, my great grandparents, they all hated all of this, and they, you know, at this point, and a lot of actually older generation, they're saying that there's like no way we can get back to that system, because that was a terrible and terrible times. You see, we are, as a society, as human beings, as Homo sapiens, we are not able to be truthful, or I don't know how to call it. So these type of things where everyone is equal, everything is this and that, everything is split up among everyone, it doesn't work. And all of you who are like fetishizing basically Soviet Union, you really don't understand what you're talking about. And we finally are yelling you about this, but all of you are being like this. But okay, well, I'm not gonna get into this because I'm starting to get very angry about that. Well, basically, it was a very bad period of time. People were literally just destroyed for their points of view, and were basically what's going on now also on occupied territories. They are like, people are getting killed just because they're showing their point of view. Okay, getting back. So they tried to get rid of Kulchytska from this apartment, but the activist, or Ukrainian activist Filaret Kolesa, also, I'm sorry, I don't really, no, I'm not sure how to pronounce it right, to stress his surname, but he was like the director of this ethnographical museum, where Kulchytska was working, and she like wrote that she is a very, very important artist in our land, in our country. You cannot just, get her out of her apartment. She has a lot of stuff. She has a lot of artworks. She need this space. And well, that's how things got on. So the Soviet government, well, they listened, or what was the reasons are, as for me, unknown, but like, okay, they listened, and Kulchytska was still living in this apartment. Then in June of 1941, Lviv was occupied by Germans, and as it's said that there is not much known about her life in this period of time, so we just know that she was teaching some young people, some students. She was working in the museum. In the museum of the Shevchenko Scientific Society, continued to research some folk art and etc. Well, basically doing what she could do, what she was known to do best. But at the end of July of 1944, the Soviet government got back again to Lviv. Because of that, like a lot of Ukrainian activists, a lot of Ukrainian artists, writers, scientists, they all left Lviv because they knew what Soviet Union, what Soviet government is, and they knew that if they would stay, they would be destroyed, just because they are Ukrainians and they have their position, and they apparently are proud of their own land, because how dare they to be proud, right? Ukrainians being proud of Ukraine, how dare we, right? And it is still a thing, how dare we be proud of our land? Because when we are proud of our land, we are called Nazis and nationalists, but when everyone else around us is proud of their land, they're calling themselves patriots. Very interesting logic. And okay, moving on. I mean, I won't be, I won't apologize for my opinions and for my sarcasm, because I don't really want this channel to be completely, neutral and apolitical, because I like don't stand with all of you people who are political and who think that politics is something like meh. No, in this point of time, in this period of time that we're living now, you are just even not allowed to be apolitical. Like, that is even not normal to be apolitical in this in period of time like this. So yeah, so I mean, obviously I will not push my like agendas on you and like make some propagandas, that you need to believe just like this. Feel free, to believe in whatever you want, but also I am this is like my channel, and I will put also, sometimes I will put my ideas, and I will tell you my ideas, how I see some things, how I feel about certain things. You see, these topics are making me very angry, because I really don't understand how the logic works. Why the hell I'm called Nazis and called a nationalist? when I'm just proud of my culture, I love my culture, and I want my culture to live, because we're being destroyed for like more than 300 years already from different sides, from Russia and from Poland, and but when they are, again, when they are like loving their country, they're calling themselves patriots. This is such a, it's not even a double standard. I don't even know. It's a hypocrisy. It's such a hypocrisy that, again, I don't even know how to describe it, and I'm feeling so frustrated about this. So obviously this type of topics there bring, and Soviet Union also, like I have such a hatred toward this thing, because like, my families were affected by Soviets, and even though you see, like in my mom's side, I'm Ukrainian, on my dad's side, I am like mostly Ukrainian. We have some Polish blood because my great grandma, she was Polish, but she was born in Ukraine, not like far from Kiev. And my great grandfather, he was Russian, like fully Russian, but and he was born there, and they lived there, and well, my great grandma, yeah, she was also some kind of, this witch. Amazing. How can you not believe in science on the word witch? You fell off. But well, basically, so I have a little bit of this blood, like 95%. I am Ukrainian with a bit of Polish and Russian, unfortunately. But I don't claim this energy, I don't claim it. So yes, but still, you see, even though, well, I was telling that even though, so my grandfather, so it's my father's father, his family was very affected by this. Like almost everyone, was affected by it. Some part of them were traitors, and they stayed there, and there was, licking their like Soviet government asses. But again, we don't claim them. My grandfather hates him so much, like with all his heart. But those who were normal, they like, yeah, they were affected very very much. My mother's side also, they were like, the relatives on this side, my grandmothers, they were also affected very deeply. And actually my great grandmother, so it's like what, my mom and her mom, and this is mom of my mom's mom. She was telling even back then that, like, what is this system? How is that fair that I am working my ass off all day, in the village, and and then at home and stuff, and well, getting my payments, right? And someone who is drinking half of the day, not doing anything. And even though all of you will tell to me, but there was this law, there was really this law that you needed to be employed, and you need to work and stuff like this, because if you will not, you will be sent to Siberia or something like that, into all these camps. It was a law, it was true. But you do understand that in some villages, like smaller villages, this law didn't work, because no one was really actually, like, they were just working. They didn't have time to, like, look at one another, and they just knew that someone was doing this or doing that. But people, like our people, they knew if they would tell to the government, to authorities, that, well, there's this guy that he's not doing anything and stuff like that, they knew exactly what will happen with him. And they were not ready to take this responsibility on their life and on their consciousness, to ruin someone's life, even though he is like an alcoholic, something like that. But still, they knew that he would be destroyed, like completely destroyed. And yeah, but still, she's like, my great grandma, she was telling, like, how is this fair? How is this fair? I'm working like so hard, and I'm getting the same payment as this guy who's barely working. So you see, that was all over the place in Soviet Union, and this is how your beloved communism, socialism works. It doesn't. Okay, getting distracted a bit. Bit of personal information, bit stuff, but well. What I stopped that a lot of people, a lot of our intelligent mind, they got out of the country, obviously. And I mean, I don't blame them, because if you wanted to continue to work and to create and to be a free person, you needed to get out of this country and to get out of the Soviet Union. But Kulchytska, she still decided to stay, even though she was sure that one day she would just be in Siberia. But moving on. Kulchytska, she was like very not fond of Soviet government, of this Soviet reality. She didn't sympathize with this communist ideology. She was not a member of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union or CPSU. Her stylistic and vision are different. She followed her own path and focused on the achievement of the Western European art. We can see this in her works because like there's nothing better that can speak for artists than his works, right? And you will never see like this portraits of Stalin, for example, or just overall of all of this highly of the like high standing people in this communist party, right? She was never working in this generous social realism, you see. Because at this point also social realism became a thing, and this is the main theme was to show a working class and how happy they were. What is the most important? How happy they were working 12, 14, 16 hours a day. Because apparently you are very happy, right? When you are working somewhere in the mining coals or I don't know, or some building sites, this is such a light and amazing work, right? To work 14, again, 16 hours a day. This propaganda that you work, you're amazing, everything will be fine. Spoiler, it was not. It was a program, the control program, that if you wanted to be an official artist, if you wanted to gain a lot of money, to have your own studio, be in the Society of Artists of Ukraine, and just overall, you needed to work in socialism, in social art, and the social style. That's all. Also, right? Amazing life, amazing life. And Kulchytska, she was not doing any of this. She was not buying this shit, I'm sorry. And she was not painting all of these things that were glorifying Soviet Union, because she didn't believe in this. She didn't saw herself like that, and she was a powerful individual who had her own deep view on the world, felt freedom, and lived in a time when art was free. It was obviously, you can imagine that it was hard now for her to manage all of this that was going on. In the letters to her comrades, to her acquaintances, friends, she would write that this after war time, like post-war period, it was a very hard period for her, and there was a great tragedy for her because prominent representatives of Ukrainian culture were being destroyed, basically. Some just got out of the country, someone was just basically killed. And she herself, as I said, she knew that she can actually, for this point of view and this word, she can be sent to Siberia, and thus starting from this period of time, she started, to preserve her works as much as possible. So she was sending them to churches. She was sending them to directly to Andrei Sheptytsky, the metropolitan bishop, that archbishop that I said, that I mentioned previously, because she was like writing, and that was the works on her, like patriotic themes, the churches she painted also. There was some religious also paintings, because church was something, it was like basically not allowed in Soviet Union. Religion, it was some like it was banned, and you can got actually to some of the to Siberia again, just because you were, I don't know, doing some icons. Again, right? Amazing time. Soviet Union, yes, top class country. And so she had a full series of Passions of Christ, and she sent these works also to the National Museum, so they will hide these works and preserve them. So that was what she was doing, because she truly believed that she would be persecuted one day. But fortunately, this didn't happen. Well, God knows why, because she was a very powerful figure in Ukrainian culture already, but she was quite old, so she was in her 70s, 80s, so she was already an old lady, and she was painting, but she was not like painting directly very like patriotic patriotic paintings. So that's maybe why she was not touched. But again, age, your status, like social status, those things were, it was not something that would prevent social Soviet Union to destroy you, right? So who knows why she didn't. Well, maybe I think maybe because she was like telling her position, right? But she was not like telling it so actively and so strongly as a lot of other artists. She was just basically quietly, doing her sketches, doing her paintings, just quietly catching all of this stuff, all of the national stuff. But she was not like pushing this into media, into society. I don't know. Maybe because of that, they decided that, well, okay, she's old enough and she's basically like she's really not doing anything. In 1851, she was elected into the government, so our government called it Verkhovna Rada of Ukrainian SSR. She was like just, she was just presenting the Lviv intelligence. I mean, Lviv, like, no, intelligence is different thing in English. Well, intelligent people, artists, also writers and stuff like that, they asked her to be in the government, and she was there, but she was like she was not in a communist party, and like she was a non-party person, non-party representative. And because of this, in 1952 she was even deprived of her professorship, but students were like shocked about this. They defended her. So in this period of time, she's 74. So when she got elected to this Verkhovna Rada, she was already a 74-year-old. And here I will like also quote you one of the art critics that she told like quote about the situation. Alena Kulchytska was such a well-known person in artistic circles that it could prove the ugly face of the Soviet government, which positioned itself in Galicia as the government that supposedly come to meet the this like artist writers and stuff. Her deputyship was a political move by the Soviet authorities. Alena Kulchytska was already at a respectable age, did not participate in political actions, was neutral in this. She maintained very serious ties with the Ukrainian diaspora. In one of the correspondence, she says that she felt bad that she was involved in this process of becoming a deputy. The problems with that. In Przemysl, in the house where she lived, they, so it was like not long ago, a few years ago, a commemorative plaque was installed with 3 names on it. Olena Kulchytska, Vincenta Tarnawska, she was a Polish politician, and Helena Deutsch, she was a psychoanalyst. All of them, just, you see, they lived a certain period of time in this house. And this commemorative plaque was installed as part of the art project of The Center of the World is Here. But it was not officially opened due to the decision of the Institute of National Remembrance of Poland and the dissatisfaction of the radical Polish environment, because Olga Kulchytska, because she was a deputy in Verkhovna Rada, non-party deputy, as I already told, in 1951 to 55, so she was 4 years in Verkhovna Rada of Ukrainian SSR, and thus this commemorative plaque allegedly promoted the communist regime. Okay, interesting, right? Interesting. This commemorative plaque was made. This Institute of National Remembrance, they asked to review that, and well, there were no problems to both of others women names, but Olena Kulchytska was a problem apparently. However, the residents of the buildings and the architecture department of Subcarpathian Voivodstvo, it's like a region, they were like completely fine with this board. They were like, okay, let it be. They allowed to put this board they allowed this board to be installed, and the INP, Institute of National Remembrance, they still like pushing this agenda that no, how come, right? So they asked so there's a full museum of Olena Kulchytska in Lviv, and they asked to send them like you know, the archive files and stuff about her activity in this year, so 51, 55, when she was she was in the government. And well, there were nothing about her being a communist. There were like more about the fact that she hated communists. But well, you know, but however, still, you know, they read what they wanted to read, and still they were pushing this agenda that Kulchytska was an element. The name of Elena Kulchytska was an element of promoting communism in public space, because Elena Kulchytska was an active communist figure in the USSR. Okay, no, okay, again, again. How dare everyone love. Okay, so this plaque was not installed, and like a few years back it was even broke. Someone broke it. Amazing, right? Nice. She was still working, she's still painting, she's still doing her research, is studying the ethnographical questions and stuff like this. And in 1967, like in the morning of 8 of March, she became a laureate of Shevchenko Prize. So Shevchenko Prize, it was founded like a few years prior in 1961, and it's, you know, a prize that were given inside of the country for people who made a significant contributions to art, to literature, to society, so, you know, stuff like that overall. Basically, you know, our internal Nobel Prize. So she found out that she was the laureate for this prize. But unfortunately, so she was not able to receive it because she died the same morning. She died after a few hours when she found out about this news. And yeah, so things with her was like this. This is our beloved and amazing master. And as I said, she left like a lot, and I mean a lot, more than 6,000 of different types of works that are now in different museums and fortunately preserved. And we, as I said, we have them in the full museum dedicated to her in the apartment where she lived. And it is actually very also interesting that it's like her museum, and directly through this street is the museum of another of our very, very well-known and important artists, Alexei Novakievsky. I will make also a video about him because he had, you know, very interesting style. So this is the story about our amazing Elena Kulchytska, our amazing artist, our amazing woman that preserved everything, preserved our, like, at least Western regions. As I was telling, I was mentioning that it's such a pity really that she was not able to go to like Eastern and Southern regions. But this is everything that I have for today. Next video will be on another amazing woman, our Ukrainian also woman. She's like not very an artist, but you know, photography is still art. So we'll be talking about Ukrainian photographer and traveler. So yes, also amazing woman. Just received her books finally today. With her travel photos, so stay tuned for that. And today you'll definitely find out something new for yourself, because I'm more than sure that like a lot of you haven't even heard about her. Hope it was interesting for you. Hope you also fell in love with her a bit as I did when I was preparing this. And as usually, good morning, good day, good evening, good night for all of you, my fellow insomniacs, and hope to see you in the next videos. Bye bye.